The celebration had gone on longer than she expected. Champagne, laughter, and the dizzying glow of success left her tipsy and unsteady. She staggered down the hotel corridor, laughing at nothing in particular, and didn't notice she had wandered into the wrong room. The door creaked open, and she froze. Inside, a tall man in a crisp suit was watching her, his expression unreadable. Cold eyes, sharp jaw, and an aura that screamed danger. He was everything she should avoid. Everything she feared. And yet, he looked at her with something darker, something that made her stomach twist. I'm sorry, she slurred, waving a hand vaguely toward the door. Wrong room. He didn't move. Didn't speak. Just watched, silent, his gaze unsettlingly intense. Panic bubbled up, but the alcohol made her giggle instead. Okay, fine. I'll go, she said, wobbling toward the exit. Her foot caught the edge of the rug. The room spun, the ceiling tipped, and then, darkness. When she woke, the first thing she felt was the weight of the sheets tangled around her. Her head pounded. Her mouth tasted like regret and champagne. And then, she felt him. The bed wasn't empty. A hand rested lightly on the blanket beside her, and the man from the room, her accidental captor, was there. Broad-shouldered, perfectly still, and terrifyingly calm. Her heart leaped into her throat. Oh my God, she whispered, sitting up too quickly. The bed rocked, and he finally spoke. His voice was low, commanding, like gravel sliding over steel. Good morning, he said. Nothing else. No apology. No explanation. Just, him. Her mind raced. Did he see her last night? Did he know? The memory of her stumble into the room, the dizzying laughter, the blackout, all of it, felt like it belonged to someone else. She stammered. He didn't answer. Instead, he leaned back against the headboard, arms crossed, and watched her like she was both a threat and a curiosity. The air between them thrummed with tension, electric and dangerous. She wanted to flee, but her body betrayed her. Part of her was captivated, terrified, and inexplicably drawn to the cold Mafia boss in front of her. The line between fear and desire had already begun to blur. Her head throbbed as sunlight pierced through the hotel curtains. Every beat of her pulse reminded her of last night's champagne-fueled stumble. And then she remembered, she wasn't alone. The cold, piercing gaze of the Mafia boss locked onto her the moment her eyes opened. His expression was unreadable, like a predator observing prey. She froze, heart hammering. I'm so sorry, she stammered, trying to untangle herself from the sheets. Her hands shook as she realized just how close she had been to him. The memory of how she ended up here, the blackout, and the slight, involuntary warmth she'd felt against him, made her cheeks burn. He didn't respond. He just leaned back, arms crossed, eyes never leaving her. Each glance felt like a challenge, a test of courage, and maybe a test of control. She realized with a shiver that he wasn't just cold, he was calculating, deliberate, and dangerously aware of her every movement. She tried to pull the covers around herself, a feeble attempt at modesty. I can go. I'll leave now. Her voice wavered, but he didn't budge. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, as if amused by her frantic energy. You're not going anywhere, he said, voice low and even, yet edged with authority. Not yet. She swallowed hard. Why not? His smirk was subtle but deliberate, the kind that sent a pulse of heat straight to her core. Because last night, you wandered into my world. And now you're part of it. Her stomach twisted. Part fear. Part something she wasn't ready to name. His words, calm but dangerous, left her unsure whether she wanted to flee, or stay. As he rose, each step measured and deliberate, she felt a pull she couldn't resist. The hungover haze, the vulnerability, the intoxicating mix of fear and desire, it was all too much. By the time he sat down again, just inches from her, she realized one thing. The cold Mafia boss wasn't going to let her leave. Not yet. And somehow, she didn't want to. The line between panic and curiosity, between terror and temptation, had already begun to blur. She had hoped that a shower and some coffee would fix everything. Instead, it made her realize just how trapped she was. The Mafia boss hadn't left her side, not for a second. Every move she made felt observed, every breath measured. He sat across from her at the small hotel table, fingers steepled, watching her stir her coffee like she was both a threat and a curiosity. She felt like prey under a predator's gaze, and strangely, she didn't entirely dislike it. I can go now, right? She asked, trying to sound casual. Her voice cracked. You can't, he said simply, voice low and controlled. No explanation, no apology. Just, the undeniable fact that she was stuck here, with him. Her stomach twisted. Part of her wanted to run, slam the door behind her, and forget this ever happened. Part of her wanted to see where this went. The tension between them was electric, like static humming under her skin. He stood, moving around the room with the precision of someone used to control, someone whose every action commanded obedience. You walked into my world last night, he said, eyes dark and unblinking. And now, you're part of it. Until I decide otherwise. Her mind spun. His world, his Mafia world, was dangerous. People disappeared, deals went bad, and threats were constant. Yet she couldn't tear her eyes away from him, couldn't shake the pull she felt despite every warning in her gut. Trying to distract herself, she busied her hands with the coffee mug, but he leaned closer, so close she could feel the heat radiating off him. The subtle scent of his cologne, sharp and intoxicating, made her pulse spike. You're awake now, he murmured, voice velvety but edged with steel. And aware. That changes everything. She swallowed, cheeks flushing, heart racing. Being trapped in his world was terrifying. Being this close to him, this dangerous, cold, utterly intoxicating man, was even more terrifying. And yet, a part of her couldn't help but wonder what would happen if she let go of her fear, and just let herself feel. The line between danger and desire had grown thinner than ever. The day dragged on, but she couldn't focus. Every time she looked at him, her pulse skipped a beat. The Mafia boss didn't speak much, but his presence alone was enough to make her feel exposed, alive, and strangely exhilarated. They were alone in the suite, him reviewing papers at the desk, her pretending to busy herself with her phone. But the air between them was thick, charged with something neither fear nor embarrassment could contain. Then it happened. She stumbled slightly, still unsteady from last night's drinks. He caught her wrist without warning, his grip firm, unyielding, yet not painful. Her stomach fluttered. His cold, dark eyes met hers, and for a moment, the world outside ceased to exist. You're clumsy, he said quietly, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. There was amusement there, and something else she couldn't name. Sorry, she stammered, cheeks heating. Her hand trembled slightly under his touch. The alcohol, the vulnerability, the proximity, it all made her heart pound painfully in her chest. He released her wrist slowly, letting his fingers linger in the air. You're unpredictable, he murmured, leaning back in his chair, studying her like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve. And, intriguing. Her breath caught. That single word, intriguing, sent shivers down her spine. She tried to focus on the mundane, on pretending she wasn't melting under his gaze. But every glance, every subtle movement, made her pulse rise. Don't look at me like that, she whispered, though she wasn't sure whether she was scolding him or herself. He only smirked wider, the smirk that made her knees weaken. Like what? The tension between them snapped tight, like a wire ready to snap. Fear, curiosity, and something far more dangerous stirred inside her. She realized, with a pang of both dread and thrill, that the cold Mafia boss wasn't just terrifying, he was magnetic. And as she glanced at him, cheeks burning, she understood something she wasn't ready to admit. One spark had ignited, and there was no putting it out. The evening settled over the city, casting shadows across the suite. She tried to keep her distance, pretending she was busy with emails on her laptop, but she could feel his eyes on her, tracking her every move. He moved like a predator, silent and deliberate, appearing behind her chair without warning. She jumped slightly, heart racing. You're impossible, she whispered, trying to steady her voice. I'm relentless, he murmured, his tone dark, almost teasing. His hand brushed the edge of the table near hers, too close, deliberate, a spark of heat she couldn't ignore. She tried to focus on her screen, on work, on anything to distract herself. But the combination of last night's drinks, the hangover still lingering, and his commanding presence made it impossible. Every small motion he made was deliberate, calculated, designed to unnerve her, and perhaps to thrill her. You're tense, he said, leaning over her shoulder. The warmth of his breath tickled her ear. She shivered. Relax. Oh, I might have to help you. Her face flushed crimson. I can manage, she stammered, though her body betrayed her, pulsing with an awareness she wasn't ready to confront. He smirked, sensing her fluster. Can you? His gaze flicked to her lips for a fraction of a second, and that spark, that dangerous pull, flared between them. She swallowed, heart hammering in her chest. She wanted to step back, to put distance between them, but something in her, a mix of curiosity, embarrassment, and desire, kept her rooted in place. He was intoxicating, infuriating, and terrifying all at once. "You're enjoying this," he murmured, reading her reaction perfectly. "No. She tried to protest, but her voice cracked. He leaned closer, uncomfortably close, and she felt the heat radiate from him. "Stop looking at me like that," she whispered. His smirk deepened. "Like what?" Her breath caught. Fear, frustration, and something far more dangerous twisted inside her. She knew this wasn't safe, not for her, not for him, but the tension was too powerful to resist. And somewhere in the mix of alcohol-fueled embarrassment and his relentless teasing, she realized she was dangerously close to crossing a line she shouldn't. She hadn't expected him to show a crack in his armor. The cold, untouchable Mafia boss, he who ruled with fear and precision, suddenly seemed human. It happened by accident. She knocked over a glass while reaching for her phone, and he didn't scold her. Instead, he sighed, a quiet, almost pained sound. "Careful," he murmured, softer than before, and for a fleeting second, she saw it, something beneath the ice-cold exterior. Curiosity got the better of her. Why do you seem different just now?" she asked, unsure if she wanted the answer. His gaze darkened, but there was a flicker, a shadow of something she couldn't name. "Everyone has secrets," he said finally, voice low and dangerous. "Some are worth protecting." She felt a pull, her fears softening into something else. Empathy, intrigue, and a dangerous curiosity mingled with the lingering traces of last night's alcohol. The thought that he had vulnerabilities, hidden beneath layers of control and ruthlessness, made her heart race in a way she wasn't ready to admit. You're not just cold," she whispered, voice shaky. "There's something else there." He studied her silently, the slightest smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. "Maybe," he admitted. "But showing it comes at a cost." Her mind raced. She'd seen enough movies to know that the world he lived in didn't forgive weakness. Yet here he was, revealing a fragment of himself to her, a trace of trust that made her pulse spike. She realized, with a dangerous thrill, that the line between fear and desire had shifted. Last night's stumble, the blackout, the hangover, they all felt like a prelude to this moment. Something unspoken passed between them, a connection she couldn't ignore. He wasn't just the dangerous, untouchable Mafia boss who had terrified her at first glance. He was a man shaped by a harsh world, someone who carried pain and secrets like armor, and yet, for reasons she didn't understand, he was letting her see a sliver of it. And she knew, with a shiver she couldn't hide, that seeing this side of him had made the pull between them even stronger. The cold Mafia boss wasn't just terrifying, he was magnetic. And she was dangerously close to falling. The calm of the suite shattered with a single phone call. Her heart jumped as she heard the clipped, urgent tone of his assistant. "They're moving," he said, his voice sharper than steel, eyes narrowing. "Rivals. They know you're here." Her stomach dropped. She hadn't expected the danger to be this close. Last night's drunken stumble into his world suddenly felt far more real and terrifying. He stood, moving with lethal precision. Each step he took exuded authority, control, and a chilling sense of power. She could barely keep up, her hands trembling as adrenaline surged through her. "They won't hesitate," he said, almost to himself, but she felt the weight of his words. "If they reach you, I can't protect you." Her breath caught. Fear tangled with something else, desire, the dangerous thrill of being so close to him, of being the one who mattered enough to draw his attention. Her pulse raced, not just from panic, but from the undeniable pull she felt toward him. He leaned closer, his hand brushing hers for the briefest moment, sending a jolt through her. "Stay close. Don't leave my side," he ordered softly, his voice laced with an intensity that made her shiver. She nodded, unable to speak. Every instinct screamed to run, to escape the danger, but part of her wanted to stay. Wanted to be near him, to feel the magnetic pull of this cold, dangerous man who had become her center of gravity overnight. As he orchestrated his defense with sharp, precise commands, she watched him transform. The calm, calculating demeanor was now a protective shield, one he wielded with deadly efficiency. And she realized, with a mix of awe and fear, that surviving in his world meant surrendering to it, if only for tonight. Later, as the threat subsided and he finally relaxed slightly, he glanced at her with an intensity that made her heart lurch. "You're braver than I expected," he said, almost grudgingly. Her cheeks burned. Bravery? She'd barely survived being near him. But in that moment, she understood. In his dangerous, ruthless world, she wasn't just a bystander. She had become part of it, and part of him. And somewhere deep inside, amid fear and exhilaration, she realized she was beginning to crave both. The city outside was quiet, but inside the suite, the air was thick with unspoken tension. She tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept drifting to him, the cold mafia boss who had become the center of her chaotic, intoxicating world. She poured herself a glass of wine, trying to calm the lingering nerves from the day's threats. One sip turned into another, the alcohol loosening her restraint, dulling her fear just enough to make her reckless. He watched silently from the armchair, the faintest smirk playing on his lips. "You're drinking too much," he said, voice low, deliberate, dangerous. She laughed nervously. "I'm fine," she slurred slightly, swaying. "It's been a lot today." He rose, moving closer, the room suddenly smaller with his presence. Her pulse raced, cheeks burning as she realized just how vulnerable she looked, and how dangerously drawn she was to him. "You're reckless," he murmured, leaning near enough that she could feel the heat of his body. "And I can't let you." The words faltered as their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them, charged with desire and tension. She felt her breath hitch. The mix of alcohol, fear, and adrenaline made her reckless, bold, and vulnerable all at once. Before she could think, she stumbled slightly, and his hands were there, steadying her. Her body pressed close to his for the briefest moment, and the heat, the magnetic pull, was unbearable. "Stop teasing me," she whispered, though her voice betrayed her longing. He smirked, that familiar, infuriating smirk. "I'm not teasing," he said softly, dangerously, each word deliberate. "I'm testing you." And in the haze of wine, adrenaline, and dangerous temptation, she realized just how close she had come to crossing the line she'd fought to maintain. Her body reacted before her mind, pulled toward him, drawn into the gravity of the cold mafia boss she couldn't, and didn't want to, resist. That night, she slept beside him. Not entirely by choice, but not entirely against it either. The line between fear, desire, and surrender had blurred completely. And in the darkness, as their breaths mingled, she understood, her world, and her heart, had shifted forever. The morning came too fast, bringing with it a storm she hadn't seen coming. A message flashed on her phone, simple and chilling: "We know she's with you. Don't get comfortable." Her stomach dropped. She glanced at him, panic mingling with the remnants of last night's reckless desire. The cold mafia boss, who had seemed untouchable, stiffened at the warning, his expression sharpening into steel. "They know you're here," he said quietly, voice controlled but edged with danger. "And they won't hesitate to use you to get to me." Her heart raced. Fear, adrenaline, and a dangerous pulse of attraction surged at once. She felt exposed, helpless, yet the pull toward him, the magnetic tension between them, was undeniable. "What do we do?" she asked, voice trembling. He moved closer, protective, dominant, a presence that consumed the room. "You stay close. You trust me." His eyes softened for a fraction of a second, enough to make her pulse spike, enough to make her realize she wanted to trust him, even when danger threatened to swallow them both. But then doubt crept in. Betrayal wasn't just outside the walls, it had roots inside. Someone close had leaked information, and it was clear, nothing in his world was safe. Her pulse quickened, knowing she could lose him, or herself, at any moment. She swallowed, trembling. I can't run. Can I?" His hand found hers, steady and warm, the contrast to his cold, ruthless persona. "Not from me," he said softly, yet each word carried a warning, a command, and a promise. "Not now. Not ever." Her heart lurched. She realized that running was no longer an option, physically or emotionally. The pull between them was too strong, the danger too real, and her feelings too tangled to let go. That day, amid threats, betrayal, and adrenaline, she made a choice. She would stand by him, face the storm, and surrender to the dangerous pull of the man she should fear, but couldn't resist. And in that choice, fear and desire became inseparable, and her world, and her heart, was irrevocably tied to the cold, relentless mafia boss. The night descended like a velvet curtain, thick with tension and the faint scent of danger. She stood beside him, pulse hammering, aware of every inch of his body, every dark edge to his gaze. The storm outside mirrored the one within her, a mix of fear, desire, and anticipation. The rival threat had been neutralized, but the danger hadn't disappeared completely. And yet, in that moment, the cold mafia boss wasn't just a figure of intimidation. He was her protector, her temptation, and the center of her chaotic world. He stepped close, heat radiating from him, fingers brushing hers in a deliberate, electrifying caress. "You stayed," he murmured, voice low, edged with possessiveness and something deeper, more personal. "Even knowing the risk." Her breath hitched. I couldn't leave," she admitted, heart exposed and racing. "Not after everything." A smirk tugged at his lips, that dangerous, infuriating smirk. "Good," he said simply. And then, with a force that was both commanding and intimate, he drew her into his arms. The line between fear and desire shattered. Their lips met in a heated collision, tense and hungry, a release of weeks of tension, alcohol-fueled mistakes, and dangerous longing. She clung to him, heart racing, body trembling, aware of the intoxicating mix of vulnerability and power between them. He pressed her close, every motion deliberate, every touch electrifying. In that embrace, danger and desire became one, and she surrendered completely, not just to him, but to the chaotic, magnetic world he represented. When they finally pulled apart, breaths mingling, hearts racing, she realized something terrifying and thrilling. She belonged here, beside him, in this life of passion, danger, and intensity. "Stay with me," he whispered, voice low, rough, and irresistible. She nodded, knowing the answer without hesitation. "Always." In that moment, the cold Mafia boss, once untouchable, untamed, and merciless, softened only for her. And she knew, without doubt, that their story was just beginning. Danger, passion, and desire would follow them forever, but so would trust, intensity, and a love forged in fire and temptation. The night was theirs, and in his arms, she finally felt alive.